You have watched a lot of videos on frequency separation and you're still having that challenge on getting it right with your retouching. Well, this video is not just going to teach you how to retouch your frequency separation, it's also going to explain to you the pitfalls and the mistakes to avoid when retouching with frequency separation so that you can get that perfect image. And also, at the end of the video, I also have a bonus tip for you guys. So you want to watch out for this tip. So make sure you watch to the end of the video so that you do not miss out in from that tips. So let's jump into the magic word of Photoshop. So this is an image of my recent photo shoot I did a couple of weeks ago. Now this photograph, I'm going to use this to teach you how to use frequency separation or how to retouch with frequency separation. Now usually the first thing I do when I bring an image into Photoshop, I duplicate it by clicking Ctrl J. Now what I will do first here is to remove the blemishes. Now the reason why I didn't retouch on the background is because I do not harm the background layer, because after the whole retouching I may want to get back to the background layer and see how I started. This is the safest way of retouching. You don't want to work on your background layer because you want to go back and check out how it was looking before. So I duplicate it by clicking Ctrl J, or you can either drag the layer here, background layer, to this box here, and it will make a copy of the background layer for you. So what I do is Ctrl J. Now on this new layer, I remove the blemishes. This is the layer I use for removing blemishes and making some manual adjustment. To remove blemishes, you can use an empty layer too, especially when you're using tool like the spot healing brush tool or the regular healing brush tool. Doesn't matter if you're using an empty layer or a filled layer. For example, you can see it's also removed the blemishes even though I'm working on an empty layer. That's because on this place here, the sample all layers is on check. So if I check or check it, it will work on all the layers there. But if it's on check, no matter what I do, it doesn't affect the image. I have to have a check. Then if it's a regular healing brush, I need to click on current and below or all layers. So I'm just going to remove this empty layer and work on the duplicate layer for the blemishes. So I will just remove little or minor details in her skin. While she doesn't have much flaws in her skin, she really is flawless. She has flawless skin. She doesn't have much blemishes on her skin. So it won't take me much time to get to have this done. Now after I'm doing this, the next thing I do is to work on my frequency separation. Now before I proceed, I want to let you know that there are two types of frequency separation. Or should I say the image, your photograph determines the type of frequency separation you can use. For example, we have our images can either be 16-bit. If you shoot raw, your photograph can either be in 16-bit raw or in 8-bit. If you want to check if your photograph is 16-bit or 8-bit, you go to image, then go to uh, mode, and you see 8-bit, 16-bit, and 32-bit. Clearly, it's showing here that my photograph is 16-bit. Now, there's a slight difference between an 8-bit frequency separation and a system bit. I'm going to show you that right now and right here. This will help you when doing frequency separation or when using frequency separation to retouch your photograph. Now, as knowing this, that this is a system based image and this is a method of frequency separation. They are not much different, but I'm going to show you the difference. So what I will do is to create a new field layer. And how can I do that? Is to hold the control key and the alternate and then shift and E, control alternate shift E will help me create a new visible layer. Now what I will do now is Ctrl J or duplicate these two into two layers, then group them into and make into one layer. Rename the group to frequency separation. Meanwhile, you can also come here to rename this layer to make it more organized to blemish. This is a blemish remover layer. Now open the frequency separation group layer, then rename the first one to the low frequency. The bottom is the low frequency, and then the top layer is the high frequency. Now we're almost ready. Now the next thing to do is to make the high frequency layer invisible. So I'll click on the I button and it will be invisible. Now the low frequency layer is where I will apply my Gaussian blur. Now let me give you one tip about the Gaussian blur. Each image is differs, and and depending on the sharpness of your photograph and how close your subject is or far away from the camera will determine how much Gaussian blur you should apply to your photograph. For example, in this photograph, it's pretty sharp, but now let me apply the Gaussian blur to it and see and determine this and see what will work for me. Now this box here will help you see what you're doing clearly. It will just zoom out a particular area of your model skin. Now what you want to do for the Gaussian blur is this. You want to choose that radius where the textures are no longer showing. The potholes, the textures of the skin are no longer showing. So that is what you want to do. Like in this now, and this radius is still showing. So I may want to increase it a little bit. You see the textures are slowly disappearing. I will still want to increase it a little bit more. And now you see the texture is completely gone. So I'll click OK. Now before I click OK, I want to tell you this, guys. The lower the Gaussian blur, the lower the texture, the lesser the texture you get in your photograph. The higher the Gaussian blur, the more texture you get. So if you want a natural photograph where the textures are still there, increase your Gaussian blur, but not too much to that point where you can barely see the face. No, don't do that. If you do that, your picture will become too texturized. It will become over. It will be too textured. There will too much texture in that it will look awful. And you don't want to reduce the Gaussian blur to a very low radius, because if it's too low, the model skin will look too smooth and look so flat. It will no longer look natural. So you want to choose that radius where the model will look natural at the same time our skin will be flawless. So The number we choose, the radius we choose earlier was 9.0. So let's take it to 9.0. Let's and then click enter. And that is that we are done with the low frequency. Then we go to the high frequency layer and make it visible now. You see the high frequency is stay sharp now. This is what we're going to do. We're going to image and then apply image. So it's at this point you will now have to decide on what to do with your image. If it's 16 bit or 8 bit. If it's 16 bit, this is what you need to do. You on your layer, it will show you image. Take it to low frequency. Now when you take it to low frequency, you want to change the blending mode. Now for 16-bit photograph, this is where it is important. For 16-bit, you change the blending mode to add. That is what you do. You click this blending mode to add, then your scale should be at 2. Then you go back to this place where the wrote. Now go back to that box where the wrote invert. I have that place checked, and it will give you this gray, this gray looking image. Now what it has just done, it has extracted the texture from the low frequency layer. Now the next thing to do is to change the blending mode to linear light. Now this is what it will give you. Now you have made the adjustment and you are ready. Now you are ready to go. But if assuming it's an 8-bit photograph, let's go back and click Ctrl Z again. Let's go back and do this again. If assuming this photograph was 8-bit, this is what we would have done. We'll go to image, apply image, low frequency, uncheck the invert box. Make sure it's unchecked and then click change the blending to subtract. Your scale should be 2 and then the offset should be 128, and then you are up and ready. But since this is a 16-bit, I'll have to keep it at add and not subtract, and then scale 2 and then have it on invert. You can see that's done that for me already, and then I am ready to go. Change the blending mode to linear light. So one thing, then at this moment, the next thing I need to do is to create a new empty layer. So at the middle, I'll create a new empty layer. And this is the layer where I'll start working on the skin and smoothing the skin. So I'll name this color correction. Before I start working on this photograph, let me tell you what they give you a quick insight on what the frequency separation allows you to do. Some of you may already know this, but let me help you or remind you of what the frequency separation enables you to do. Now, this frequency separation, as the name implies, it separates the images into two frequencies, the high frequency and the low frequency. The low frequency, what it does, it allows you to work on the color. For example, you can work on the color alone. Let me show you something quickly. If I click on the move tool and move, you see the color. You notice something. You notice that I'm moving the subject, but the texture is still remaining where it is. Right? Good. Now that is the color. Then, if I should go to the high frequency and move it, you see that the textures, if you look carefully, the textures is what is moving and not the color. So that is what the frequency separation allows you to do. It allows you to work on two frequencies, the textures and the the color. So what we want to do is to blend the skin color to be even. That is what frequency separation is all about, to blend the skin's color so that it will maintain an even color and it will blend perfectly well. Now, another thing to note about the frequency separation, because the advantage of using frequency separation to retouch is that you can work on the skin, you can blend the skin, you can smoothen the skin as much as you want without affecting or damaging the texture. And you can work on the texture without you affecting the skin color. And that's one beautiful thing about frequency separation. Now, let's begin. So, to start working on the skin, this is what we have to do. We click on our brush to the brush to here. Now, these are things you need to understand when we are painting. This is what the frequency separation allows you to do. You sample a color and you paint. If you notice, as I'm painting, the textures are still there. That is what the frequency separation allows you. It helps you to work on the color without you affecting the texture. But you see, the pressure, the intensity is too high. So I'm going to reduce it. And how will I do that? By reducing it with the flow. Now, when using the regular brush, you want to reduce the flow to around 4, between the ranges of 5 to 3, or 3 to 1. You don't want to use it higher than that, except probably you are good at using this. So now what I will do is to make this high frequency invisible so that I can see what I am doing clearly. So I'll sample here and then paint. Now, one other thing you should be aware about frequency separation is that as you are painting, don't just paint. No, don't just paint round or without pattern. No, what you should do, you should follow the structure of the face when painting the face, because that is another problem most photographers or retouchers get encounter. By the time you if you do not follow the structure and the pattern of the face, your picture may come out looking awful. I had that challenge tons of time when I was still learning how to use frequency separation. After doing the retouching, I found out that the skins are not blending well. It's not looking natural. It's looking awful. It was later I discovered that I was not really following the pattern of the face. Now this is the pattern. Let me show you quickly. Let me use the color. Let me show you quickly. Now when you are doing frequency separation, these are the pattern of the face. Look at this, the pattern. Let me increase the flow to 100. This is the pattern. You want to follow the pattern of the face. So when you're painting, you want to paint following this pattern. You see what I'm doing here? The same thing. Follow the pattern. Follow the pattern. So what you should be doing, so following the pattern of the body. So if I'm zooming on here, you should go this way. You shouldn't do it round and start painting it round. No, you want to be going following this pattern. When you come to here, follow this pattern. When you get here, you follow the pattern upon the lid. Let me just do that again quickly on the face. You do that here, 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 just like that. and that's just it. So that is what you have to do when doing frequency separation. You don't just want to paint the face round, 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 round. No, like a ball. You want to follow the structure and the pattern of the face. That is what you want to do. So let me take my flow back to 4% or 5%. Let me see. Let me keep at 4 or 5 rather. So sample the skin and then start painting. And then one other tip too, when you get to the highlights, you want to paint sample from the highlights area. So like this place, you want to sample from here and then paint over this place. You don't want to, when it gets to the shadow area, which is the darker part of the subject, you want to sample from that area. So just bear that in mind when sampling, so that the subject face will have dimension, so that it not look flat. While you are trying to blend the skin, you don't want to make her face look flat, completely flat, because that is not what you want. You want dimension to be on her face, and that is what highlights and shadows enables you to do, to create dimension in the face. Like this small place here, you see this is a highlight, you sample it, and then you paint over. Making sure that everything is blending perfectly well, and don't be afraid to make mistake. If you make mistake, you can just click or Ctrl Z and go back again and correct the mistake you've made. So you keep on painting and then till everything is done. From time to time you want to check your before and after. Before, after. Then turn on texture layer. Look at the before and the after. Let's proceed and let's continue with these. So I'm going to fast forward this. You get the point. Just follow the structure of the face, and basically that is what you need to do. Follow the pattern and work with the structure. You can see it with your eyes how the body is going. So you want to work with that. So I'm going to fast forward this video to save time. So by the time you're done, you may want to check out your photograph and check out the before and the after. And the truth is, I discovered sometimes, most times, I tend to go overboard with it when retouching my photograph. I want to try and go overboard with it. So what do I do? After retouching, sometimes you may go overboard, it may become too much. That is where you have opacity. Let's see, let me check here. Okay. Let me paint it again. Okay. So that reason why you have opacity, in case you overdid it, you may want to reduce the opacity. Now look at this before after. You see, it's looking more natural and at the same time blending the skin. So that is one beautiful thing about frequency separation. Now I could see close to the nose I don't like there's this distraction on the nose, close to the nose there. I want to remove that distraction. Now that I will do using the texture. So what I will do is to sample an area. Now when using the texture, you don't want to keep it on current and below. You want to have it on current layer. Because if you keep it on current and below, this is what will happen. If you sample here and then you paint, this is what it will give you. And you don't want this. This is not what you want. So what you do is ensure it's on current layer. So it's working on that texture layer and nothing else. Because if you keep it on current and blur, it means it's affecting both the color correction, the low frequency, and every layer beneath it. You want to work only on the texture layer, so you keep it on current layer, and then you sample. Now we want to cover this place up, so I'll sample a texture from here and paint over. You want to ensure that you're sampling the right texture, and that is it. Now you see that is gone. So that distraction is now gone. So you can see how blended and how smooth the skin is now compared to before. And that is what frequency separations allow you to do. It blends out the skin and at the same time retaining the texture. Now, I hope you benefited from this class, and on the next video I'm going to show you how to use touch and bond. Now retouching does not end in frequency separation, it goes further than that. So on the next Photoshop tutorial class, I'll explain to you the next step, which is dodge and bond. So I'll explain to you what dodge and bond is and how to make use of it. Now you've learned all those things about frequency separation. Now it's time for you to go and practice all you have learned. But then, this is a tip I want to share with you guys. What you need right now is a consistent practice and nothing more. You're not doing a terrible thing. The truth is this, you can't expect your retouching to be that perfect at this instant. Consistent practice is what makes your work perfect. It's what helped me. I remember a year ago when I was still learning how to retouch with frequency separation, I found it difficult to love my own photography. That's kind of weird, right? Yes, I had one or two challenges. It could either be that the photograph is too smooth that they look like a cartoon, or it could be that the texture is too much that the picture is over sharp. Now it made me worried that I just had to keep on practicing and practicing and practicing. So the more you practice, the more you get better at it, and the more you are able to discover the mistakes that you've made and correct them. If eventually you are lost in any way and you're confused, get back here and watch the video again. That is all. These are things that helped me when I was learning frequency on learning how to retouch. So you also want to do the same. Practice, practice, practice. Where you're getting it wrong or where you're making a mistake, you're not getting it clear. Come back and watch the video again. And that is all you need to do to be able to master the scale of frequency separation. And that is it, guys. If you benefited something from this video, please like this video because it's going to help others who would be interested in this video to be able to see it and watch the video. If you do this, it will help boost my video to a lot of people. And also, please do it to subscribe so that you don't miss out in my future videos. In my next video on Photoshop, I'll be discussing dodge and bone. So you also want to watch out for that video. So please subscribe to my channel so that you do not miss out from that video.